A desperate signal, Commander Thrix pressed his scaled palm against the cool metal of the observation deck, watching another of his colonies burn in the void. The bioluminescent patterns along his reptilian features flickered with stress as he observed the carnage through the reinforced viewport. His people, the Zephrians, had ruled this sector of space for over 3 millennia, building elegant cities that floated between asteroid fields and mining operations that could extract resources. From the hearts of dead stars, now, it was all turning to ash. The enemy moved like a disease across the battlefield. The swarm, as his scientists had designated them, appeared to be biomechanical entities that could adapt to any weapon, absorb any energy, and convert organic matter into more of themselves. They had emerged from the dark reaches beyond charted space 6 months ago, and every conventional military response had failed spectacularly. "Status report," Thrix commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never expected to face extinction. Lieutenant Zara, his communications officer, consulted her holographic display with trembling claws. "Colony 7 Beta has gone silent, sir. That's the 15th settlement this week. Our defensive fleets report the same pattern. Initial engagement shows promise, then the swarm adapts and overwhelms our forces." Thrix closed his reptilian eyes and tried to process the mathematics of annihilation. At this rate, the Zephrian civilization would be completely consumed within 47 days. Their most advanced weapons, their most brilliant tactics, their most sophisticated defenses, nothing worked against. An enemy that learned from every encounter and grew stronger with each victory. "Sir?" came another voice from across the bridge. It was Chief Scientist Yalth, whose crystalline implants glowed with frustrated energy. "I may have found something." Thrix turned, hope flickering in his golden eyes. "What kind of something?" "There's a human research station at the edge of our territory. Deep Space Biological Studies. They've been monitoring our conflict from a safe distance." Yalth's tentacles writhed with nervous energy. "The humans are classified as a Category 9 species. Primitive but interesting. Interesting how? They come from what our databases classify as a Class 12 Deathworld. Their planet has survived multiple extinction events, and their species has evolved under constant threat. Our xenobiologists have been fascinated by their survival adaptations." Thrix felt a bitter laugh escape his throat. "And you think primitives from a dangerous world can help us where our most advanced technology has failed?" "Sir, with respect, our most advanced technology assumes rational enemies who follow predictable patterns. The swarm doesn't follow any pattern we understand. Perhaps we need irrational solutions." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of failing life support systems. Another colony was dying somewhere in the darkness, and traditional Zephrian thinking had produced only elegant failures. "Open a channel to the human station," Thrix ordered. Dr. Kaya Volton was analyzing tissue samples from a methane-based life form when the priority communication came through. She looked up from her microscope, her brown hair escaping from its practical ponytail as she reached for the CUM unit. The human research station Prometheus was small by Zephrian standards. Just 43 crew members studying exotic biology in the depths of space. "Dr. Volton here," she answered, expecting routine reports from the mining surveys. "Dr. Volton, this is Commander Thrix of the Zephrian Defensive Fleet. We are transmitting on all available frequencies because we need help." Kaya blinked. In the 18 months she'd been stationed here, the Zephrians had been polite but distant neighbors. They considered humans to be barely civilized, interesting primarily as subjects for xenobiological study. They certainly never asked for help. "What kind of help, Commander?" "We are facing extinction. An enemy called the Swarm has destroyed much of our civilization. They adapt to our weapons, absorb our energy, and convert our people into more of themselves. We have exhausted all conventional military options. Kaya felt her heart rate increase. She'd been monitoring the distant battles through long-range sensors, but the Zephrians had always seemed confident of victory. Commander, I'm a biologist, not a military strategist. We're a research station, not a combat unit. You study survival, Thrix replied, desperation creeping into his translated voice. Your species has survived catastrophes that would have ended ours. We are not asking for weapons or soldiers. We are asking for ... perspective. Kaya looked around the cramped laboratory, where her team had been cataloging the impossible life forms that thrived in the vacuum of space. Then she thought about Earth, a world of ice ages and supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts and gamma-ray bursts, where life had learned to survive by being adaptable, persistent, and occasionally completely insane. I'll need to consult with my team, she said. And Commander, I think you might be surprised by what humanity considers a research mission. 12 hours later, Captain Rex Bulldog Harrison stood on the bridge of the converted research vessel Prometheus, now hastily equipped with every weapon system the human crew could improvise. Rex was a veteran of the Titan mining wars, a short, stocky man with graying hair and scars that told stories of survival in impossible places. So let me understand this, Rex said to Dr. Volton as they approached the Zephrian fleet. These scaled beauties have been fighting this swarm thing for months with no success, and they called us hoping for what? A biology textbook. They called us hoping for a different perspective, Kaya replied, checking her equipment readings. They've been approaching this like a conventional war against a conventional enemy. But the swarm isn't conventional. And you think we can do better? Rex, we come from a planet that has tried to kill us every single day for 4 billion years. We've survived ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, and each other. If there's one thing humans are good at, it's finding ways to survive against impossible odds. The Prometheus docked with the Zephrian flagship, and within minutes, Kaya found herself in a conference room that looked like it had been grown rather than built. Commander Thrix towered over her, his reptilian features showing exhaustion and fear. Around the table sat other Zephrian officers, their scales displaying patterns that her translation software identified as anxiety and desperation. Dr. Volton, Thrix began, we are grateful for your response. We have prepared detailed scientific data about the swarm entities. Perhaps your biological expertise can identify a weakness our scientists have missed. Kaya looked at the holographic displays showing swarm biology, the biomechanical fusion, the adaptive capabilities, the rapid reproduction cycles. It was fascinating and terrifying. But what caught her attention was something else entirely. Commander, show me your battle recordings. Not the scientific analysis, the actual combat footage. For the next hour, Kaya watched Zephrian forces engage the swarm with mathematical precision. Their ships moved in perfect formations. Their weapons fired in calculated patterns. Their tactics followed sophisticated algorithmic models. It was beautiful, elegant, and completely predictable. There's your problem, she said finally. I beg your pardon? You're fighting like you expect the enemy to be reasonable. Look at this pattern. Your ships always maintain optimal spacing. Your weapons always target the largest threats first. Your retreats always follow the safest routes. You're predictable. Chief Scientist Yalth leaned forward, his crystalline implants pulsing. Dr. Volton, our tactics are mathematically optimal. They maximize efficiency while minimizing losses. Against a rational enemy, sure. But the swarm isn't rational, it's adaptive. Every time you do the smart thing, it learns to counter the smart thing. You need to start doing stupid things. Commander Thrix felt his scales darken with confusion. Stupid things? Deliberately inefficient tactics. Wasteful strategies. Actions that don't make sense from a mathematical perspective. but might confuse an adaptive learning system. Kaya stood up and began pacing. On Earth, prey animals survive against predators, not by being stronger or faster, but by being unpredictable. Random movements, sudden direction changes, behaviors that don't follow logical patterns. You are suggesting we fight randomly? I'm suggesting you fight like humans. Rex Harrison grinned, showing teeth that had been sharpened during his years. In the asteroid mining colonies. Doc's right, Commander. I've been looking at your swarm problem, and I think I know exactly what these things are. Enlighten us, Thrix said. Parasites. Very sophisticated parasites, but parasites all the same. And humans have been dealing with parasites since before we crawled out of the primordial soup. Rex activated his own display, showing biological data from Earth. Every ecosystem on our planet has predators and prey, but also parasites, organisms, that survive by exploiting other organisms. And you know what? Every successful species on Earth has evolved defenses against parasites. Kaya's eyes widened as she realized what Rex was suggesting. You want to introduce Earth pathogens to the swarm. Not pathogens exactly, but Earth biology is aggressive, competitive, and completely alien to anything in this galaxy. What if we introduced some controlled biological chaos into their adaptive systems? Commander Thrix looked between the two humans, his scales shifting to patterns that suggested growing excitement mixed with terror. You are suggesting biological warfare, using organisms from your Deathworld. We're suggesting giving the swarm something it has never encountered, Kaya corrected. Earth life forms that evolved in an environment of constant competition and adaptation. Organisms that don't play by the rules, because on Earth, there are no rules, only survival. The Zephrian officers exchanged glances, their communication. Patterns too subtle for human translation software to interpret. Finally, Thrix spoke. Dr. Volton, Captain Harrison, what would you need to implement this strategy? Rex's grin widened. Well, Commander, funny you should ask. It just so happens that our research vessel is carrying enough Earth organisms to seed a small planet. We came here to study alien biology, but we brought plenty of our own biology along for comparison. And, Kaya added, we'll need to coordinate with your fleet for a joint operation. But, Commander, you need to understand something about how humans fight, which is, we don't fight to win elegantly. We fight to survive. And sometimes survival requires doing things that civilized species would consider barbaric. Thrix looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching swarm fleet, then back at the two humans who were proposing to fight biomechanical parasites with what amounted to controlled biological chaos. For the first time in months, he felt something resembling hope. Very well, he said. Show us how Deathworlders wage war. Deathworld Solutions 24 hours later. The combined human Zephrian task force faced the largest concentration of swarm entities yet encountered. The biomechanical creatures had converged on the agricultural world of New Zephyria, where 17 million civilians waited in underground shelters while their planet was slowly consumed from orbit. Captain Rex Harrison stood in the modified Bridge of the Prometheus, now serving as the tactical command center for the most insane military operation he had ever conceived. Around him, Zephrian officers worked alongside human crew members, their elegant technology interfacing with improvised human systems in ways that should have been impossible. Status report. Rex called out. Dr. Volton looked up from her biological. Warfare station, a collection of containment units, genetic sequencers, and delivery systems that she had assembled from laboratory equipment and mining tools. Phase 1 organisms are ready for deployment. I've selected 12 different Earth microorganisms that show aggressive competitive behavior in controlled environments. Controlled environments? Commander Thrix asked nervously. Well, controlled-ish, Kaya admitted. These are bacteria and viruses that we use for biological research. They're designed to be aggressive, but contained. In theory? In theory? Rex clapped the Zephrian commander on his scaled shoulder. Thrix, my friend, you wanted to see how Deathworlders wage war. Rule number 1. If you're not taking risks that terrify your own side, you're not taking enough risks. The tactical display showed the swarm fleet arranged in their typical efficient formation around New Zephyria. 300 biomechanical entities, each one a fusion of organic adaptability and mechanical precision. They were systematically stripping the planet's atmosphere while converting surface materials into more of themselves. Traditional approach would be to engage them in open battle, observed Lieutenant Zara from her communication station. Our fleet could maintain safe distance and attempt to destroy them with concentrated fire. Traditional approach has failed every time, Rex replied. We're going with the traditional human approach instead, which is get close enough to hurt them, and hurt them in ways they've never been hurt before. The first phase of the attack began with something that violated every principle of Zephrian military doctrine. Instead of maintaining formation, the combined fleet scattered in apparently random directions. Human and Zephrian ships peeled off individually, following flight patterns that seemed to have no tactical purpose. Prometheus to fleet, Rex broadcast. Remember, people, we're not trying to win a clean victory here. We're trying to survive long enough to make these things regret attacking us. Commander Thrix watched in fascination and horror as Captain Harrison piloted the Prometheus directly into the heart of the swarm formation. Instead of targeting the largest threats, the human ship seemed to randomly select targets, firing modified mining lasers and improvised weapons at apparently random intervals. Captain Harrison, Thrix called over the comm. Your targeting pattern makes no mathematical sense. That's the point. Rex replied cheerfully as he manually piloted around a swarm entity's energy beam. These things learn by analyzing patterns. Can't analyze what isn't a pattern. But the real shock came when Dr. Volton activated her biological warfare systems. Instead of delivering organized strikes against strategic targets, the human ship began spraying clouds of Earth microorganisms apparently at random throughout the battlefield. Dr. Volton, Chief Scientist Yolf, called from the Zephrian flagship. Your biological deployment appears chaotic. How do you expect to achieve effective infection rates? I don't, Kaya replied while manually targeting another cluster of swarm entities. I'm not trying to infect them efficiently. I'm trying to create biological chaos that their adaptive systems can't process. The results were unlike anything anyone had expected. The swarm entities, which had successfully adapted to every Zephrian weapon and tactic, began behaving erratically when exposed to Earth microorganisms. Their biomechanical systems, evolved to process and adapt to coherent threats, struggled to handle the aggressive, competitive chaos of Earth biology. It's working, Lieutenant Zara reported with amazement. Swarm entities are showing signs of systemic confusion. Their adaptive algorithms appear to be overloading. Rex grinned as he watched a cluster of swarm ships suddenly veer off course. Their biomechanical components apparently fighting against each other as Earth. Bacteria introduced competitive pressures that had never existed in their original environment. That's the beauty of Deathworld biology, he explained to Commander Thrix. Every organism on Earth evolved to compete against every other organism on Earth. We don't just adapt, we adapt aggressively. These swarm things are used to absorbing and integrating new biological material, but they've never encountered biology that fights back at the cellular level. The second phase of the attack was even more chaotic. Dr. Volton had prepared what she called evolutionary pressure bombs, containers filled with Earth organisms specifically selected for their ability to rapidly evolve and compete in hostile environments. Releasing Phase 2 organisms, she announced, launching dozens of containers into the heart of the swarm formation. Asterisk. Commander Thrix watched as the containers exploded among the swarm entities, releasing clouds of what appeared to be ordinary Earth bacteria and single-celled organisms. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then the screaming started. Not audible screaming. The swarm entities didn't communicate through sound, but their biomechanical signatures began fluctuating wildly, showing signs of internal conflict at the cellular level. The Earth organisms, instead of being absorbed and adapted as expected, began competing with the swarm biology for resources and control. Incredible, breathed Chief Scientist Yolth. The Earth microorganisms are not being integrated. They are actively resisting integration, while simultaneously trying to convert swarm biology to their own purposes. It gets better, Dr. Volton replied, monitoring her biological sensors. Some of the Earth organisms are already beginning to evolve in response to the swarm environment. They're adapting faster than the swarm can adapt to them. Rex initiated the third phase of the attack by doing something that would have gotten him court-martialed in any civilized military. He deliberately crashed the Prometheus into the largest swarm entity. "Rex!" Kaya shouted as the ship shuddered. Under the impact. "What are you doing?" "Something stupid that might just work," Rex replied, activating the ship's emergency systems. Instead of trying to escape, he triggered what had originally been designed as a mining charge and explosive device, meant to crack open asteroids for mineral extraction. The explosion tore through both the Prometheus and the swarm entity. But instead of destroying both ships, it created something unprecedented. A hybrid structure that was part human technology, part swarm biomechanics, and completely unstable. "All ships, this is Prometheus," Rex broadcast from his damaged bridge. "We're inside the enemy command structure. Beginning Phase 3 deployment." What followed was the most insane military operation in recorded galactic history. The human crew of the Prometheus, wearing improvised environmental suits, began moving through the hybrid wreckage, manually placing Earth organisms throughout the swarm entity's biological systems. "This is madness," Commander Thrix observed, watching his human allies literally walking through hostile biomechanical structures while carrying containers of Earth bacteria. "This is how humans fight," Dr. Volton replied, even as she injected genetically modified Earth fungi directly into what appeared to be the swarm entity's central nervous system. "We don't just attack the enemy. We get inside the enemy and make it fight itself." The results were catastrophic for the swarm. The Earth organisms, introduced directly into their biological control systems, began the process that had made life on Earth so remarkably persistent: competitive evolution. Instead of being absorbed, the Earth biology began competing for control of the swarm systems, creating feedback loops that the biomechanical entities had never encountered. "Swarm fleet is showing signs of system-wide failure," reported Lieutenant Zara. "Multiple entities appear to be fighting themselves." Through the viewport, Commander Thrix could see swarm entities literally tearing themselves apart as Earth microorganisms introduced competitive pressures that their adaptive systems couldn't resolve. Organisms evolved on a planet where everything competed with everything else, were not designed to be peacefully integrated. "Rex," Commander Thrix called over the comm, "your crew needs to evacuate. That hybrid structure is becoming increasingly unstable." "Negative," Rex replied. "We're not done yet. Kaya, release the Phase 4 organisms." "Rex, we agreed Phase 4 was too dangerous." "Yeah, well, sometimes too dangerous is exactly dangerous enough." Dr. Volton hesitated for just a moment, then activated the final containers. Phase 4 contained organisms that she had never intended to use. Aggressive Earth. Microorganisms that had been genetically modified for rapid reproduction and extreme adaptability. They were designed to survive in any environment by aggressively competing with any other life form they encountered. Phase 4 released, she announced. Rex, we need to get out of here now. These organisms will consume everything organic in the area, including us. Copy that. All human personnel, emergency evacuation to escape pods. The final phase of the battle was observed from a safe distance as the Prometheus crew was rescued by Zephrian ships. The hybrid structure that had been created by the collision was now completely overrun by competing Earth organisms, each one trying to out-evolve the others while simultaneously breaking down the swarm biomechanics. It's spreading, Chief Scientist Yalth reported with a mixture of fascination and terror. The Earth organisms are propagating throughout the entire swarm fleet. Their adaptive systems cannot cope with multiple competitive pressures simultaneously. Commander Thrix watched as 300 swarm entities, which had successfully conquered dozens of worlds, began systematically destroying themselves. The biomechanical parasites, evolved to absorb and integrate organic material, had encountered something they had never faced: Earth biology that was more aggressive, more competitive, and more adaptable than they were. How long before the Earth organisms burned themselves out? Thrix asked. Dr. Volton consulted her readings. In this environment, without additional resources, probably 6 to 8 hours. They'll consume all available organic material, including each other, then die off from lack of resources. And the swarm? The swarm entities are biomechanical. The Earth organisms are systematically breaking down their biological components while leaving the mechanical parts intact. In another few hours, what's left will be non-functional machinery. Rex Harrison, now aboard the Zephrian flagship with his rescued crew, looked at the tactical display showing the collapse of the swarm fleet. Not bad for a day's work. Commander Thrix studied the human captain with a mixture of respect and concern. Captain Harrison, Dr. Volton, you have saved not just New Zephyria, but potentially our entire civilization. But I must ask, is this how humans always solve problems? Rex and Kaya exchanged glances. Pretty much, Rex admitted. We identify the problem, find the most direct way to attack it, and attack it with more force than is probably safe or reasonable. And if that doesn't work, then we try something more dangerous until something works, Kaya added. It's not elegant and it's not efficient, but it keeps us alive. Commander Thrix looked at his own officers, with their mathematical precision and elegant solutions, then back at the humans, who had just solved an impossible problem through what could only be described as controlled chaos. I believe, he said slowly, that the Zephrian civilization could benefit from learning more about human problem-solving methods. Just remember, Rex warned with a grin, if you start thinking like humans, you're going to start taking risks that scare you. That's how you know you're doing it right. 3 days later, as the combined fleet returned to Zephrian space, news of the victory had spread throughout the galaxy. The impossible had happened, a species that the civilized worlds had dismissed. As primitive Deathworlders had succeeded where advanced civilizations had failed. But for Dr. Kaya, Volton, and Captain Rex Harrison, it was just another day of doing what humans had always done, surviving against impossible odds by being too stubborn to give up and too crazy to know when they were beaten. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to have humans as allies, and what it cost to have humans as enemies. Either way, life in civilized space would never be quite the same again. Asterisk.